We're talking about PlayStation? Aghast! I'm talking about a PlayStation topic? Yep, that's right. Well, it's not just about PlayStation or Sony, it's also about how they're going to be handling E3 2019 or lack thereof. So, before I get started, I do want to start off by saying I'm starting to get into PlayStation, especially in the last few years. I've become a lot more interested in their franchises. As a kid, I'm pretty sure, like many of you, and come on, even if you're not saying, "Oh, I was objective as a kid," we were all really young people, young kids who just only liked the one game console we owned at home. So I feel like I think we were all like this when we were kids, and like I was the Nintendo kid when I was younger. I used to just buy the Nintendo consoles. I used to worry about the console sales, and when the Wii was out and it was selling super well, I would always use that as evidence to, like, if I had classmates who were like, no, PlayStation is better, but look how well the Wii is selling, how can you top that? But in the last few years, I am slowly starting getting into PlayStation. I'm playing the games when I do have time to check them out. And ironically enough, E3 2009, Sony's conference was actually what convinced me to start considering maybe I should buy a PlayStation 3 in the future. And of course, we're on the PlayStation 4 now. And I did buy it's so weird, like my primary console choice is still Nintendo systems like the 3DS, Wii U, and the Switch, but I did start getting into PlayStation. My first PlayStation console was actually PSP. Fortunately, I actually bought this right before the Vita was announced, like when it was still called the NGP, so didn't really get a chance to play too many games. I liked the games that I got to play on it. I played a demo of Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. Maybe one of these days I can get the game installed on my PSP. The one game I play a lot of is Gran Turismo, which I'm a racing simulator fan, so that explains it. It was one of the first games. I do have God of War. I think Ghost of Sparta, but I can't seem to find it. You know, it's funny. This red PSP was actually a bundled with a couple God of War games, but you know, back then my parents didn't want me playing it. They saw the ESRB rating and they're like, ugh, violence and sex, no way. So yeah, but nowadays I've started getting into God of War. I've played some of the first God of War on PlayStation TV, and I'm currently playing God of War 3, the HD edition, on my PS4 through PlayStation Now. And that's actually a lot of fun. It's easily becoming one of my favorite PlayStation franchises, God of War. I mean, who knows? Come Black Friday, if I can go out, I'll try to get God of War for PS4, because I'm getting very interested in that. So yeah, the other consoles I do have a PlayStation TV. I got a PS4. My sis is actually playing Bloodborne downstairs. This is my preferred red PS4 controller. As you can guess by my branding, my favorite color is red. And yes, my sister plays a lot of Dark Souls 2 and Bloodborne on the PS4 downstairs, again, for PlayStation Now. So PlayStation and Sony is definitely something that I'm starting to get into, even though I'm still primarily a fan of Nintendo stuff. It's kind of like, PlayStation is kind of like I've been at the Nintendo barbecue this whole time, but then I found out the next door neighbor PlayStation has some really cool stuff too, and I started getting into it. So yeah, definitely interested. And this news story that I'm going to be talking about regarding Sony and PlayStation isn't too surprising given where E3 has gone in the very recent years, but at the same time, it is surprising but not surprising, and that is the news that Sony said that they're not going to be at E3 2019, which I don't think they're going to be like completely out of the picture of E3 in 2019, but they did say they won't have as big a presence at E3 2019. And I have a quote here from Sony. Well, it was a statement that Sony gave to Variety, and it says, quote, "As the industry evolves, Sony Interactive Entertainment continues to look for inventive opportunities to engage the community. PlayStation fans mean the world to us, and we always want to innovate, think differently, and experiment with new ways to delight gamers. As a result, we have decided not to participate in E3 in 2019. We are exploring new and familiar ways to engage our community in 2019 and can't wait to share our plans with you." So I know on YouTube there are some commentators out there that have been saying, oh, E3 isn't what it used to be, and I'll get into my thoughts on E3. Like, the thing is, even nowadays, like since 2007, I've always been hyped up for E3 as the one really big game conference of the year. Still do to this day. Like, I always prepare for doing Nintendo live streams and checking them out and awaiting some really big announcements. And yeah, the E3 shows in the past have given us, you know, some of the biggest announcements in the past few console generations. You know, it's the show where the Nintendo Wii was first shown off as the Nintendo Revolution. It was where actually both good and bad announcements, but it was still the really big show. You know, I could remember the PS3 being shown off at E3, and you know, it was also the place where the Nintendo 3DS was shown off to the public. So it definitely has its say. And even to this day, it's still an event that I get really excited for and get really optimistic that there's going to be some really juicy announcements, like some of the biggest of the year. Although that being said, I think there's two reasons as to why Sony isn't going to E3 2019. One is, as much as I still get excited for E3 conferences, despite a lot of people saying, oh, E3 is irrelevant, I will say that game companies have other means of telling people more information. Like, most notably, you look at Nintendo with their Nintendo Directs, you know, they have these, you know, online in sort of press conferences, you know, where they have, you know, executives and developers showing off new games that are coming to Nintendo Switch systems like the Switch and 3DS. And, you know, we've even seen it in the previous generation. You look at the PS4, Xbox One, and even the PlayStation Vita. Wow, this is me doing a 3 sign. All those consoles weren't officially announced at E3. Like, yeah, they announced more concrete details, like things like final name or things like what the PS4 actually looks like. I think that's where they first showed off the PS4. But, you know, Sony officially announced the Vita as the NGP at a separate event in Japan. And Sony and Microsoft officially announced the PS4 and Xbox One at events prior to the E3s of their respective years. So I think that's also what's going on, is that Sony wants to take a lot more initiative. Like, you know, we want to handle our own event because that means we get more of the spotlight. Whereas if they go to E3, you know, they have to deal with really big announcements from Nintendo and Microsoft. So even though Sony, yes, is a big company and they make the most successful console this generation, they're also crowded by, you know, equally successful or also other popular companies like Sony and Microsoft. The other reason too, and I have to agree with Dreamcast Guy, when he made his video talking about why Sony isn't going to E3 2019, he brought up that he thinks it's because the PS5 is coming out. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And I have to agree, because the PS4 was initially announced at an event prior to E3 of that year, you know. And yeah, it kind of goes back to what I was saying. But the other systems, the Xbox One and the Vita, were also officially announced at events outside of E3 because they wanted to gain more of the spotlight. You know, instead of spending all that money to go to E3, they're like, you know, hey, let's do it on our own. And judging that, you know, going into 2019, I think we're getting close to a PS5 announcement. I don't think it's going to come in 2019, mind you, because it'll only be 3 years off from the PS4 Pro. And mind you, you know, even though the PS4 Pro has more enhanced hardware, we're going from, instead of going from the PS4 to PS4 Pro, we're going from the PS4 consoles to the PS5. Like, this is, you know, this is where the next generation is going. So I think it's more likely we're going to see, as Richard Review Tech USA says, we're probably going to see a PS4 in the 2020s. I'm personally thinking 2020, possibly 2021, or somewhere along that range. And I think the PS5 is going to be at least initially announced at an event outside of E3. You know, even the Nintendo Switch wasn't shown, you know, officially shown off at E3. It was shown in a video in October 2016. I mean, yes, we heard about the codename NX before the Switch, you know, was officially shown off, but it didn't get its proper unveiling until October 2016. And if you remember the PS4 event when it was officially announced, while they didn't show the console, I remember Mark Cerny talked about the kind of hardware it would have. There were also some developers there, and they showed off the DualShock 4 for the first time. So I think they're going to do a very similar thing. I don't know if they're going to wait to show off the console at E3 2020 or something like that. Maybe they'll do that. That's kind of a gray area. But I think it's very likely, especially since Sony's two prior consoles, the PS4 and PS Vita, were shown off at events outside of E3. I think there's a good chance of the PS5 getting its own event. Again, because it brings in more publicity and Sony doesn't have to compete with the competition for the spotlight. Because they'll be their own player at that event. And do I think that Sony is not going to be at E3 2019 at all? Like Dreamcast guys said, I think there's a chance that Sony could show up in some capacity, because I know E3 does, build up hype in the gaming community and it gets the shareholders excited. So I think of it like they'll probably do like a sort of Nintendo Direct where they have Let's Plays of the games, they'll, show off some new games from both first and third party developers. They'll do Let's Plays of them at E3 2019. It's funny, it kind of reminds me of what Nintendo did at E3 2016. Right before the Switch came out, when Nintendo went to E3 2016, they brought a few games, and instead of having like a Nintendo Direct or Nintendo Digital event, they just kind of did, showed Let's Plays of, hey, here's Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and a few other games. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sony did that. And who knows, to Sony's advantage, because they're doing a similar move to Nintendo, it could build hype for the PS5 as well. So yeah, it's kind of a gray area as to whether Sony won't be at E3 at all. I don't think we're going to get a press conference like we usually do. They might do Let's Plays because I think they'll still want to show up for E3. Whether you think it's irrelevant or not, it still has, some capacity of staying power. So I think they're still going to be there, but I think they're going to make even bigger announcements at their own events. And who knows? Will Sony have press conferences ever again? We'll have to wait and see. But as for the PS5, as much as I would like to see it announced at like E3 2020 or even 2021, I think it's more likely that it'll get its own event just like the Vita and the PS4 did. Would I get a PS5 from the get-go? I'm not really sure, because I'm also hearing word that Nintendo is working on a Switch Pro, and so I might just wait for the PS5 to come down in price and play the last few PS4 games coming out. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. So, alright guys, please post your thoughts down below. Why do you think Sony isn't going to E3 2019? Do you think it's because they're going to announce the PlayStation 5 at another event? And please recommend some PlayStation franchises for me. I've played games from the Gran Turismo, God of War, Killzone, and Uncharted series, but please recommend your favorite franchise or even your favorite game. I'll try to see if I could play it on PS4 or PlayStation Now. So leave all those thoughts down below. If you have any ideas for future Sony or PlayStation videos, please feel free to leave them in the comments, or you can also email me. My email address is in the description. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all later. Hey guys, be sure to like this Blood Moon Bobby video if you enjoyed it. Please share this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment. Be sure to ring the notification bell to be notified about my latest upload. Follow me on my social media pages at Blood Moon Bobby to find out about what I'll be covering next and for more of my opinions. Thanks for watching.